Welcome to YourStory.com. I'm your business editor, Vishal Krishna. Today's topic is retail to e-tail, okay? And the topic is brought to you by Google India's Make Small Strong initiative. By the way, guys, for you listening in, today it's all about small businesses. There's no better time than now to consciously buy local and support these small businesses. Today, we have with us SMBs who are going to tell you how to manage the pandemic, how they've managed their business, how their customer patronage and advocacy has helped them tide over this time of uncertainty. We will also discuss the role of e-commerce, digital adoption, role of cash management, and to ensure business continuity, survival, and revival. Let me introduce this esteemed set of panelists here. Okay, I've got Rashmi, who's the founder of itsybitsy.com. I've got Malika, who's the founder and CEO at Momsco. I've got Subramanian, who's the founder of Asper Eco Ventures with the brand Organics for You. What's the last 6 months like for you? I'm going to start with Rashmi. Rashmi, what's going on in Itsy Bitsy? What's happened for you? You're in the crafts and supplies and arts market, obviously. And, it's for people of all ages, young adults, people who want to get into home decor and things like that. But things changed, 7 months. What's been going on with you there?
So the last 6 months have been really crazy. It's been really tough and very, very challenging. I mean, we've been in business since 2004. Business is never an easy ride. But what we have seen in the last 6 months has been a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
So we have 24 brick and mortar stores and an e-commerce business site as well. So yeah, having to deal with 24 stores, all the vendors and all that. In the stores itself, we had more than 100 sales staff, managers and everything put together. We are a manufacturing business as well. We are a vertically integrated business. So we had challenges on the manufacturing front as well. So it's been nothing short of crazy. We had to renegotiate the leases on all the stores. 5 of our stores, we are present in 8 different cities and 24 brick and mortar stores. So 5 of them in malls. So we ended up closing the Phoenix Mall store in Bangalore, and the other malls we had to renegotiate the lease. And some of the stores which were very expensive, we closed that and we moved to a more economic option in the vicinity. So I think a lot of downsizing and restructuring has been the way forward.
It's hard times, and I didn't realize that you had 24 stores, and that must have been a shock for you, Rashmi.
Sorry?
You had 24 stores, you said, right, across the country?
Yes.
So managing them during the pandemic must have been hard for you.
Oh, it's been really very difficult, and particularly the mall stores ended up being closed for a long time. And some cities like Chennai, we have stores in Hyderabad, Chennai, Pune, Goa, and Ahmedabad or Bangalore, of course, all these places. And Chennai remained closed for a long time. Ahmedabad had cases. So every time there was a spurt, the whole thing would end up getting closed. So fortunately, we had our online store. So that was actually our lifeline. Nice. During the time the stores were closed. But yeah, I think slowly we realized, that this is the way. We wouldn't give up. That's very close to our heart, that business, and there was no way we were just not going to give it up and not fight. So I think being a creative company, we came up with lots of measures, and somehow I think we are slowly bouncing back to kind of normalcy. Yeah.
So what kept you going? The move to obviously the digital store was already there, and that helped you guys boost sales.
Absolutely. One was the digital store. The other thing is we are a purpose-driven company, completely goal-driven company. So my husband and I, we came back to India in the year 2004 with the intention of providing employment to rural women and empowering them. So that is something which is very close to our heart. So
Okay.
keeping the jobs going as much as possible and not giving up on our goal was something that again helped us take it forward. So I think doing a WhatsApp order was a very good measure that also kept it going, and people loved it. I mean, it would end up in their doorstep within no time. And we also did pop-up stores in apartments.
Nice.
So that was again another initiative that kept us going. And I mean, all these measures, and we also never lost touch with our customers. We kept up the customer engagement through our social media.
I want to move on to Malika quickly. So how did you guys manage the last 6 months, and what kept you going in spite of the current situation?
So I think, we fell in the category of being essentials very early on. So we
Yes.
were allowed to start shipping out because our category is for pregnancy and baby care largely. So I
Yes.
think that was where business in terms of demand really did not see too much of an impact for us. In fact, for us, business actually increased post the pandemic because of we being online first. I think what impacted us the most was the supply. With transportation being very, very constrained, both from the supply end, which is from the manufacturer's end to our end, there was, of course, a lot of operational work which needed to get done to sort of satisfy the demand that we had. Also, shipments going forward, and this is where I would give complete credit to all the consumers who sort of loved the product and stayed with the product, because deliveries were not happening in 2 days. Some deliveries took as long as 1 week, and as soon as you would sort of start the shipment, one area would go into the red zone, and there was returns coming back from that place. And we had all these crazy things, like as you said, right? Like we sit on a base of consumers who don't shift from using products. Like they're very, very loyal to the kind of products that they take on. So which meant they trying to figure out where to be available. And I have some amazing stories that during this period of lockdown, my customer care team grew by almost double, largely because of this little zones being tied up, becoming red as soon as possible, becoming green, yellow, and all, and just constant this thing. I would ship out an order which was in green, and the very next day it would turn into a red. And then what do you do? It's already shipped out, right? And then it's not getting delivered. It would lie in warehouses. And that was when I think a huge shout out to all the consumers out there. They got their orders delivered to the nearest place where they could pick it up from. And that zone or that pin code was not in red and green. So which meant a lot of work operationally for us. One, because of course, demand increased. Like our business grew about 2x during just the period of lockdown, which meant increased demand for product which had to be fulfilled at a time of very constrained supply. Everything from your primary packaging to your secondary packaging to finished goods, everything was very hard to sort of collate and come back to, right? So those were the biggest struggles that we faced. And shipments going forward, delivery was a big challenge. For the longest period of time, there weren't delivery partners who were delivering. Stuff had to be shipped out. So I think that bit of it was quite uncertain, but as we have progressed from the time of lockdown, things are much, much nicer now. The delivery partners have started delivering on time. We've again moved back from that 1 week delay, which used to be to about 2 days to 1 day in certain cases as well. So I think we've seen a lot of stabilization from the time it originally started. But having said that, it's also because retail is not a large part of my business. Our business is largely online, and we've always been D2C first. Right. So that's broadly been where we've been impacted the largest.
Okay. And what kept you going? I mean, apart from seeing all these macro problems that you had to handle operationally, what kept you going personally?
I think it was just that you're not going to give up, right? And I think it was, we've got calls from customers, literally picked up in the middle, and then to get this from customer care team, kind of, this customers yelling at us, and I'm like, why is he yelling? Like, what happened? He's like, you guys have no social responsibility. You have not ensured that your products are available in retail stores, right? It's just so much love for the product, and it was just so much love from the consumers end. Like, there are people who called up and said, I shifted from your product and my child had an allergic reaction. Kindly please fix stuff as far as possible. And those are times when you sort of step back and think that yes, we have been able to make a difference to a few lives. And I think that's so encouraging for not just me, but the entire team to kind of keep pushing those limits. Like that we've been up through nights, if I will just put it, because it's been really hard on everybody. And also working from home isn't easy. We just restarted work about a month back, but everybody working from home with all the constraints that were put up for you was really, really hard. But I think it was just these consumers writing into us, sending us emails, calling up to say that we don't want to shift to anything but remain with your product, which kind of pushed not just us as founders, but also the entire team, and it kept them completely motivated.
Subramanian, interesting. I'm coming to you because organics for you is all about working with farmers, getting getting the right product, certified product to the customer. You have physical stores. You're Bangalore based. So when I look at your business and business continuity, you have to work with the supply chain. A lot to do with the farmers, the mandis, right? The mandi rules changed during the pandemic, right? And then people stopped coming to the stores. So how did you manage it?
So organics for you is like we're like a really hyper local organic store. We're the first exclusive organic store in Frasertown, and we've been so for quite some time. See, one of the main reasons is any retail, but especially organic retail, it has I would say it's heavily operations driven. Managing the supply chain, managing your inventory, and managing customers, supply, collections. It's the whole ballgame. The entire end-to-end has to be managed in extreme micro detail. So, I mean, March 22nd was I think the lockdown. On 24th or so, I started getting calls. Subbu, is the store going to be open? Are you sure of supplies? Are you going to be getting? The number of calls, we were getting calls from practically almost customers who had stopped buying from us for 2-3 months for whatever reasons. But, that really set us charging. So, we got into that mode. We said, okay, now what do we have to do to put things in place? Basically, that's the day I decided. I think it was a Thursday, and I decided that we would have our operations continuing. I mean, some people would say, are you mad? There's a pandemic outside. It's infectious. But for us, it was all about ensuring that no matter what, we are not going to stop anything. We're going to make sure that our customers get what they need. So that's when the entire gamut of, coordinating with, all our relationships with vendors came into play. In fact, the other big thing was that there was so much of news going around that we had, it was literally a glut of nonsense with very little bit of information that was coming through. So obviously we get down to brass tacks, like, reading government circulars and ensuring that, okay, this is what is the process that the government has put in. We know that we are in essential services, but but to know how exactly you come across to the, to the authorities that you are indeed an essential services provider, that was very clear from the government circulars. So we used those, and not only did we get our own passes in one day, that is on Friday, we also helped our farmers to get it. So essentially what happens is, like, we work with about, I would say we work with some, it's a farmer cooperative with whom, where there are about 50-55 farmers who have been working exclusive organic for the last about 10-12 years.
So your customers went online, or they ordered through aggregators or through WhatsApp?
No. So basically our mode was, we went almost entirely into WhatsApp mode. We had a clear-cut idea of what would be available. A day prior, we would announce what's available, either in terms of fresh produce or in terms of dry groceries. Once those orders would come, they would get collated, they would get sent wherever possible to the farmers, but otherwise to our, we would have the rest of the stocks, dry groceries and all, we stock at our end, at our stores.
Okay, and it's some sort of e-commerce, is it? I mean, the link would be sent, you would send payment links to them. That's because I want you to talk about it a little more, because that's interesting for me. So if it's WhatsApp, it's your loyal customer base that would start ordering from WhatsApp, or because you said there were orders from suburbs that you'd never think of orders coming from, right? How did you manage?
Okay. So, so basically once our list would go to them, they would just simply send us the orders. There would be a link in terms of the price list, but not in terms of a payment link. But this is only a pure ordering tool. WhatsApp became our major mode of ordering, where I would say that about well over 95-98% was people were just adopting to use. They chose WhatsApp as the mode.
Okay.
So we would not be typically like an online. I would say we are something of a hybrid model. So a blend of a physical store with an online ordering tool. I mean, before the pandemic, though, we used to obviously welcome walk-ins, but after that, we've said, okay, when we announced to people that you don't have to walk into the store either for payments or for the ordering, they were very, very happy. They were very clear that nobody wanted to take a risk, nobody wanted to come out. So all the orders moved to WhatsApp, all our supplies were physical, and all our interaction, even in fact, our farmers were able to, get onto WhatsApp for our ordering to them.
Okay, interesting, man. That's an interesting thing. Rashmi, in your case, so I'll just come back to Subbu. I mean, Rashmi, I want to talk about you in terms of, because you're vertically integrated from manufacturing, your supply chain becomes important. You have stores, you have e-commerce, right? And when you talk about, digital transformation, people use that word and that phrase a lot nowadays. I mean, has that really happened? Is that the future? Yeah, because you have to manage multiple pieces now, right? Because it's kind of an omni-channel approach, right? And are you adopting processes where your manufacturing unit absolutely knows what to produce in this online world, what not to produce? Because you also have, you're listening to customer reviews. You can study customer behavior faster online rather than physical stores.
We have our ERPs in place and all that in our manufacturing. But I think after seeing this having this COVID experience, we are trying to adopt more and more technology into the business to forecast, the needs and everything. And unlike the other two businesses that Mallika has or Subramaniam has, ours was not an essential, not classified as essential. Unlike the other two businesses that are on the panel, ours was not considered an essential, although it was an essential item. Mm-hmm. People moved into arts and crafts. I mean, the demand grew. Our online business has grown by leaps and bounds. But it was, so the demand was there. People were calling us, asking us for products. So that was a challenge we faced, and they would say, you open the store for a short while, we'll come and pick it up. And we could send it, by courier from our warehouse, but then it would take ages. So these were all the challenges we had. But since we already had an online business, we could make up for what was lost in the stores. So, and that kept us going. And, as far as payment is concerned, we had all the systems in place. So, it was already a cashless thing. So all those things being in place, it's not very difficult for us to adopt to the new way of life. All these posed a great challenge because the demand was there, but we were unable to do it. So sending the raw materials to and from was a huge challenge. Getting these people to come and make it, and then they all had to be transported to all our 24 stores and our web store. So that transportation was again a huge challenge. So being a vertically integrated thing and having had the demand and not being able to service it completely posed a great challenge. But I think slowly we overcame that. Once the things eased a little bit, people started coming in and they had the confidence, the workers started coming in, and we could overcome those
so will technology help you retain customers, or will it bring you new customers? Are you going to pivot your model? I'm a fan of omni-channel, that an entrepreneur should have several experiences to serve the customer. But what are your thoughts on digital taking over in this pandemic and going forward?
Even now, our stores are doing the WhatsApp model. So it's an omni-channel thing. So they service the neighborhood stores. And I think we have to go more and more. I mean, that's the plan. Eventually, we will have warehouses in different cities. So I think having a warehouse in different cities that services the stores in those cities is another option. But the other model where the stores themselves act as an inventory and service the customers, whereby reducing the delivery time, is the other option which we have already adopted. So I think
So technology will be central to everything now.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we are looking at a lot of technology, adopting a lot more technology in the coming days. We are in talks with different, partners, technology partners, and I think we will have that in place very soon.
Malika, you're not just a D2C brand, you also have a physical distribution model, right? Getting them on to use technology tools would have been difficult, but obviously things that will probably change going forward with the physical distribution side of the business, right? And I also wanted to touch upon why it's important for entrepreneurs or all retailers watching this or small businesses watching this to understand why digital is at the core of everything. You can also have physical stores, but they need to fulfill, like what Rashmi said, they need to also be ready to fulfill orders coming from local areas and networks, right?
So, I think it's very interesting to see how different models, like when
Yes.
your Swiggies and other people also went onto a model where they could sort of get the delivery in place for you, right? It was not just delivery happening from the big players, but it was also these smaller, relatively established organizations which took on to kind of helping you with the distribution arm for it. They started off with saying that if some distribution places from your logistics partner or where your warehouses was, they would pick up stuff from warehouses and help you deliver in different places. I think the amount of people who used Dunzo increased
Yes.
dramatically during that period of time, right? And all of them are very largely tech-based platforms. And honestly, for us as well, the first thing that we launched at the Momsco was our own website. It's just very, very core to everyone for growing business is what I strongly believe, because I think all the data lies there, and you
Yes.
can't analyze your data unless you have technology in place. And only with the analysis of data that you do is where you can also forecast one sales and hence plan demand for that particular area. But also at the same point of time, I think it gives you deep insights to also marketing as a tool to your consumer, right? What are their preferences? What do they like us for? So for us, everything from a chatbot on the website, which is tech-based, versus a feedback mechanism that runs to every consumer who makes a purchase. Everything is very strongly integrated with tech on it. And, we have stores, as you said, you discovered us in a Cloud9 store. All those stores are also integrated and married into the actual distribution
Nice.
warehouse system that we currently have. All of it is largely so that you can disseminate information and data very easily and kind of use it to your advantage. So I actually strongly believe in tech-based models to help you grow as an organization. It just makes stuff a lot more easier. It helps you plan far more better, which I think two very integral parts of growing businesses.
Fantastic. Subramanian, now that, with information coming to you through WhatsApp, I think the farmers that you work with must also appreciate the role of technology going forward, right? I mean, they're able to better plan for the next quarter, maybe, on what people are consuming in a city. And I'm sure for you, the technology journey just doesn't end with the consumer, but you want to integrate the entire stack, right? Store, consumer, farmer, and even the logistics people, right?
Absolutely. So the very basic difference between an urban setting and something like an organic, which is so heavily dependent on a farmer, the farmer's processes, it's now become very critical. So organic is not a word that is, in many places is not entirely honest. So especially at a small business level, we have that ability to trace it to the field and the farmer and which time it's been cut or harvested, where it's come from. So that is something which a small business can definitely stand in for. But when it comes to technology, many of the farmers are more wary of, it's basically, I would put it that they are a little more comfortable with, say, a local language. Somebody, if when they see script in, let us say, Kannada, if it's in Karnataka, or Tamil if it's in Tamil Nadu, when these opportunities are given, why would smartphones sell if not? Farmers are major buyers of it. They are able to see the rates. I think this Mandi system going will help them to see where the demand for their product is. So if the local demand is not there, they can ship. They need genuine people to go and work with them, people who are able to put money into their pockets, basically net, and make farming and agriculture worthwhile again.
How
If
important
you,
is it for consumers to understand this process? That
no,
you're
I think
bringing in great product to them at their doorstep, and it changes the dynamic. Your reach increases. I'm sure that today you're not just thinking Bangalore alone. You're probably thinking Delhi. How can I launch organics for you in Delhi, Bombay, right? Pune maybe, and even Chennai, right?
see what's the essence of a small business is that you have a personal touch in at least in the organic field. It has to be personal touch. You have to have a very quick response time, and there has to be immense ease of transaction. So if a customer says, when can I get these, you have to say, where do I deliver? So how do we move to that point in terms of, say, planning or putting? This is impossible without the kind of technology that some of the big retail has, where they've understood buying patterns, demand patterns. uh, Basically a small business can replicate anything that a big retail can do. Okay, there is no doubt about it, because the people are the same. If anything, the passion that drives people is much higher. The amount of the struggle, that a sacrifice that a small business puts in is far more, simply because for him it's a matter of survival. Yeah, if I don't get this many customers today, then what do I do tomorrow? How do I pay my vendors? I'm going to that level of small business coming in and adopting a technology and making genuine organic products available to customers.
How is your business going to evolve? You've done WhatsApp, it's great. So how will it evolve now in terms of, do you have to set up an ERP somewhere from store connecting to the farmer, will the farmer's phone? I mean, how will the entire ecosystem work for you with technology? And finally, the consumer, will he appreciate the fact that he or she appreciate the fact you're bringing great products? And will they come back because of these digital tools? Maybe an app, maybe a organics for you website where there's an e-commerce store too.
The answer to both is yes. A website is being built as we speak. This is started just about 10 days ago. It should be up in the next week. We're also looking for an app to be a mobile app which we can offer to our customers, for who anybody can download and order it. We are working on a logistics model which will get it, because my farmers, you can't see them, but they're standing right solidly behind me. So it's on that confidence that we work we work with very reliable people, touchwood. But there is, for them, what they also want is what is it that we can cultivate for you. So today you can sit in say a Devanalli, and you can cultivate exotic vegetables and fruits like broccoli, or lettuce, or iceberg lettuce, or some things like that, which does have a demand in Bangalore, and it will come at a very affordable price, because it's cultivated here. If you had to get something from even outside the state, the logistic cost will just simply double the product price. So it's at the end of the day, it's about giving health at an affordable rate and using technology to ensure that the ends meet. But if you would ask me, what does your farmer look for? My farmer only looks for this, sir. You tell me what I need to cultivate for you, and you tell me how often you will need it. So that is something which is still work in progress. But I think that is the way forward.
I like the passion with which the three of you are talking, and I hope customers watching this appreciate the hard work that goes into each of their businesses. Right, they really need your patronage and support. Rashmi, customer loyalty has changed. I remember those days when you used to go to a physical store. They give you this loyalty card. Then that loyalty card became a mobile number. And now that mobile number it's like I'm sharing my Facebook, Google identity with you. And I'm sure you'd appreciate this, that the future customer doesn't mind sharing everything about himself or herself. They want to be closer to the brand, right? So how do you think customer advocacy will evolve? How do you think these new millennials, Gen Zs, even the older customers, how will they come and support the brand? How are customers coming back to you at this point of time? Are they okay to share data? What's happening with customer loyalty?
As you said, even we were giving this loyalty card when we just started. And I think, particularly for small businesses who don't have big advertising budgets, word of mouth goes a long way in helping grow the brand. And I mean, it's also good to help a small business, because these are the businesses that customers by their name. Particularly in a business like ours, our store managers know what exactly the kind of what sort of a hobby that person is into. They know what sort of products they like, and when they come in, they know what to show them. They send them information about that. And in the on our online store level, we can really target and send out the kind of products that customers would like, which again is coming back to technology. And that has really, people are very excited about the brand. And I think that again helped us through the, the tough times, the COVID times. I mean, it was a brand loyalty and patronage that kept us going. And we have our newsletters on our website again, which we send out to people. And soon we want to have an app to further help the customers that, that love the brand and follow the brand.
So interesting. So you would encourage every entrepreneur to create a community. So that's what you're saying.
Absolutely. And social media is a community that you cannot miss out on. And especially for small businesses, that is the most economical way of building a community.
That's interesting, Mallika. Customer advocacy, it seems, Rashmi, like she said, is the most important thing. And sometimes founders today also have to be advocates. They must be on Instagram, they must be on Facebook, they must be on every channel. It starts there, right? And then, as people use your product, they start becoming influencer marketers, like Rashmi said, right? What is your strategy towards maintaining customer advocacy? And how are these customers helping spread the good word, like Rashmi said?
We of course have a loyalty program that runs onto it, where on every purchase you get points from us and you can come back and use those points as money later. We also have referral going on, where as you refer a friend, you can get more people on, and that gives you benefits as well. So that's on the website. What we also do is that we ran this entire campaign for 21 days on our website, on our social pages, where I actually went up, and this is very interesting, as you say, founders interact on the platform, right? I went on the page and I created activities that I was doing with my daughters, and that could be used by other parents to keep their children entertained at that point of time. So it's not just always about marketing your own product, but it's all about creating a strong bond with your community of people, letting them know that you're always available for them. And that kind of helps you sort of deepen the engagement, plus also deepen the bond that you have with the consumers. And as a result of it, there is a certain amount of pride that customers hold in getting your product, and they start talking about it. I think it's all about creating that purpose which you stand for as an organization, and finding those right set of customers who actually believe in your purpose and kind of believe in sort of putting it out to a lot more other people. And recognizing that and start talking about the products. So like on an average, we have over 1,000 mentions on social as of now. All of it actually helps us get into their micro communities by them getting to know, and those people getting to know. And I think the best form of marketing is when a very close peer markets it to you, because that's when it really starts getting you to think, saying that, yes, if a very close friend of mine is using it, I'm sure it must be good and I must sort of adapt as well, right? It's similar people who attract more similar people. So I think it's extremely important to have customer loyalty. It is also I honestly believe it's the only way to grow. You cannot grow a business by constantly acquiring consumers, right? You will not have fast growth. Like, the reason why you can grow strongly is because there's a certain set of people who keep coming back to you over and over again, and then you are spending your marketing money on just acquiring newer people. And that's the most sustainable way of growing the business. So yes, a very strong bond once you create it kind of sets the purpose to the consumer, and they kind of attach themselves.
It's very organic also when a founder shows up there and talks to their customers, and then they go spread the word further. It's also the cheapest form of marketing, right? And then, a quick shout out to people who want to get their customers coming back, right? Do they have to reacquire them, spend money to reacquire them? Or you're saying, no, don't do that. Just go to Facebook, go to Instagram, talk about your product, keep doing these sessions like Rashmi does, and people will come back.
No, you have to keep spending money on
sort
of getting them back. So for example, we ran a whole program on retention. which is through email marketing, SMS
Okay,
marketing,
interesting.
push notifications. You need to keep doing that because, not everybody from your customer base is there as a follower of your own social, and
Absolutely.
not everybody sees it every single day, right? So the only ways you can probably do it is more, like a story on Instagram or any other way, it just stays there for like 24 hours, it goes away. It's not, a post might stay, but it goes down. Versus an email sent to your inbox has a higher chances of it being opening, a push notification, SMS. So we of course have a separate program that runs on acquisition, but there is a completely separate program that runs on retention as well.
It's so good to know. I mean, you guys are so dynamic. I'm loving the positivity with all of you. I mean, that's something that probably the audience can take away also. Subramanian, I want to ask you, for you, you have two types of customers. The farmers, they're kind onto themselves. You need to ensure their loyalty to supply to you on a regular basis. How do you manage that? Like you said, they're not tech savvy. They're not on a Facebook, Instagram, right? And then you have consumers. You have to do Facebook, Instagram to talk about organics for you. How do you balance the two?
I think one of the very, very important thing, like I said, is local language. Being able to converse with a farmer or any vendor for that matter. We are luckily in Bangalore, at least I would say, we are blessed that people appreciate a lot when we talk to them in very chaste Kannada. Where you're able to, they'd say, oh, he's like one of ours. So then they open up a lot. My farmers come to me with issues. Like, for example, this entire pandemic, the first day, my farmer went to the DC's office to get a pass. He waited all day and couldn't get it. And he kept calling me and saying, sir, do you have some contact? I was reaching out to customers. My customers were giving me contacts, say you can speak to this assistant commissioner or this deputy commissioner. And I was talking to them. And the next day he said, sir, you just mentioned that name. I went and asked for him. Then somebody had spoken to him. One of my customers had spoken to that person. And his pass got done like this. So the farmers were very grateful that their cooperative was able to get an entry to us. So it's I think going to the level of a farmer is still one step away, but we have got what you call as farmer cooperatives. So these farmer cooperatives are the way, but are the next point where automation has to happen. They are still working on paper bills. Okay, they are still working on manual calculations and things like that. The next level of automation, when it hits there, is when it will percolate into the farmers. And this is a huge opportunity in terms of tech, the place to reach. It may not be very huge in terms of a bulk supply like an urban setting, but it is going to be granular income for techies, and it's going to be sustained because it's not going to go away.
So Subramaniam, you'll have the final word. Why is customer patronage important, and why should they come back? Because you guys also employ a lot of people, and you're basically going to save this country from having jobless lives, right? I mean, you're going to make sure that people are going to be employed with their patronage. Go on, Subramaniam.
Customer patronage is very, very, very critical. Okay, now the organization only ensures that you have a specific set of customers whom you have to give a specific set of services. Now, what is it that our customers or any customer should get? Everybody wants a personal touch, yes, but how many will be able to offer it? Everybody wants a quick, a speed in terms of response. That is something anybody should be able to do, irrespective of size. See, from a pandemic perspective, I do know that you don't want people to come in and all that, but yeah, it's. I would rather say people come in with all your safety measures. We do have keep certain genuine immunity builders with us. So consume those rather than just locking oneself up at home. To keep coming out, use technology if you want to, but do your verification yourself as well. Come into a physical store, have a look at what you want, and then go ahead and buy it. But a big thank you to all our customers, to our farmers, to our vendors, because the way they rallied around us, the way they supported us in this interim was just fascinating.
That's lovely. Thank you. Malika, you want to say something? Rashmi, you want to say something?
Yeah, I mean, just want to add that as long as you are genuine, you offer genuine products, you offer value. I think that's a very important thing in retaining customers. That's something really important. And, giving the right solution if they have a problem. These are really very important. They go a long way in keeping your customers. and loyalty points. These are some of the things which we have in place and we think will help retain customers for small business.
Malika, go on.
I think it's just, I completely agree with the other two panelists. And I think it's just about knowing what your consumer wants and kind of just giving it to them to build a strong community with them. And I think sales just follow as long as your purpose is very clear to your consumer and also you're adding value to the consumer's life. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. Three of you, thank you so much. This episode is brought to you by Google Make Small Strong initiative. And as usual, your story brings you, communities and startups that are building India. Stay tuned for more of these episodes. Malika, thank you from Momsco. Rashmi, thank you. Thank you very much from Itsy Bitsy.